October 27th meeting of Grand Blanc Township. And we'd like to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Reardon, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. And now I would ask for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The agenda is approved. Now it's time for public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to address the board? Okay, Ed.
Didn't even see him there.
Hey, Ed.
Red shirt.
Hey,
Yeah.
nobody wants to listen to me tonight.
Yeah.
It's Ed at 7212 Porter Road. You know, there was some talk about blight in the township and what's going on. I just want to bring up, we used to actually have a code enforcement department. We used to have public service director. We used to have people that would look at the community, make sure things were right. Starting this board, the last board, we were relying on the people to police ourselves. There's no one really out there looking at bad grass, cars parked wrong. You're relying on the residents. And I don't think that's right. I think we need a code enforcement officer out there, someone to handle those things. Because no one wants to tell on their neighbor. You gotta live with them people. So, if we could somehow get back to that level we used to have in the township where we had people looking out and doing things. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak before the board? Anyone else wish to speak before the board? Anyone else have public comment? In that case, I declare public comment closed. And now we come to a public hearing in regard to the proposed industrial facilities tax exemption certificate for Grand Blanc processing. The board will consider a request from Assessor Becky Salvati to approve the industrial facilities tax exemption certificate for Grand Blanc Township, or Grand Blanc processing. You may come up too.
Thank you.
I put in your packet their application for the Grand Blanc processing, all of the various elements. The girl that was filling out the application did not know how many years to put down, so she put the maximum. I did run a copy of your guidelines, and by the guidelines, for the real property, they qualify for a 6-year abatement, and for personal property, they qualify for a 4-year abatement. I would suggest that you go by those guidelines. We have Tim Webb, the general manager from Grand Blanc Processing. I've asked him to explain what his business does and what's being built there and what additionally they can do with this.
All right, thank you. Kim, well,
Hi, I'm Tim Webb, Grand Blanc Processing. Putting my address here, 9295 Dodge Road.
okay, good.
Name what?
9295 Dodge Road.
Okay.
We're a processing house. What we do is we prepare steel so we can make parts out of it. A lot of it's going into the Japanese transplants like the Toyotas, Nissans, Hondas. Also, we do a lot of big three work. Over the last few years, you know, the quality standards have improved and improved. And so they're requiring in-house storage for all material. Okay, right now we have probably about 60% of our material being stored outside. With the new, like I said, industry standards, they're requiring, you know, pretty much everything to be covered on our house. So this is kind of driving this force of this project. So for us to stay in business, we need to either cover it up or find a job. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, very good. Yes, That'll be very interesting, and it is a big change.
Yeah.
After driving around there, that's, yeah, you have got a lot to store under there, yeah.
Correct, correct.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I'm just curious how many, not that this necessarily relates to this, but how many people do you employ altogether there?
Well, we have 51 employees on the floor and 15 up front, so it's at 67 employees total, or 70, yeah, 70. And we're planning on hiring 8 more people with this new project.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
So the new project's gonna bring in another additional 8 people?
8 people, correct, correct. Yeah, we'll initially start off with maybe 4, and as everything gets going, probably within a year, 4 more.
So, yeah, definitely during the term of the abatement, you will have the additional 8. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment that, I reviewed what Becky supplied, which I appreciate that. That made it real easy. And for the minimal impact it has on the township budget overall, I would be, in favor of this. Long-term business owner.
Yes,
So, just wanted to throw that out there.
yes.
Madam Chair, I agree with Dr. Reardon, except from an impact, there really is no impact to the budget. It's a growth, it's an increase in revenue. It's just 50% of what you would have normally received had you not, applied the abatement. So there, just so that the public, it's not an impact, it's an impact, all right?
But it's a favor.
And that makes it even better.
Yeah, and so, but also, what I was agreeing mostly is with Becky's presentation, and I believe we should stay within the guidelines of our own. I mean, it's our guidelines, it's what we've developed, and we've used as a standard. I think that's what we should do.
Okay, thank you. Are you making a motion to that effect?
I will make a motion that the IFT tax exempt certificate for Grand Lake processing be approved for maximum 6 years on real and 4 on personal.
Mhm.
And I'll support that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Oh, you're gonna do
This
roll
is a,
call.
okay.
You had a
Roll
question?
call.
I just had a comment first. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that they chose Grand Blanc Township to do business.
Yeah.
Well, they have had a great business through the years,
Yeah.
and we appreciate their being here, yeah.
Thank you. It's been a great community to work in also.
Great, okay, I'll do a
Yes.
roll call.
Oh,
Yeah, Mr. Bennett?
yes.
I'll say yes. Mrs. Hoffman?
Definitely, yes.
Mr. Guzzo?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Reardon?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. You have your abatement.
Thank you very much. Greatly
Oh,
appreciate it.
I need you to sign that IFT paper
ISP? Okay.
that, it's got your Grand Blanc processing on there. There's 2 for public hearings. But anybody that's here for that public hearing is supposed to sign it, that they were at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and Madam Chair, you may have done this, but is there anybody that wants to address us regarding the
Yes.
IFT public hearing, even though we've tipped our hand a little bit?
Yeah, right. Is there
Now we've approved, anybody want to say anything?
Want to open it and close it just for
Yeah.
formality?
Can I clarify something? Is what you're asking to sign just the,
The
showing he was
signage
here for
sheet.
the public hearing? I mean, he's the applicant, does he have to sign that?
I don't know, because somebody might someday ask for it,
Mhm.
and it'll just be in the file. It just says you came.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here, so
Yes.
thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
You need to open and close the public.
Yes,
comment.
I understand that.
Okay. Sorry.
And so in this case, I will close, hearing nothing else, I will close the public hearing in regard to the proposed industrial facilities tax exemption certificate for Grand Blanc processing. Thank you for the presentation, Becky, that made things very clear. Now we will have another public hearing, in this case for the Community Development Block Grant Funds. Do I have anybody in the audience that wishes to bring forth a project for the CBDG funds?
Do you, David?
So, yes, Dave?
In the past, we've gotten CDBG funding for smoke detectors. If it's possible, if we could get some smoke detectors.
Well, we're putting them all the requests on the list, okay? So we will put smoke detectors for the, how are they distributed then? Or-
It'll be distributed through the fire department, and it'll be advertised on our website, the city's website, and the fire department's website, and we'll try to get the word out. As many fire detectors as we can get, or smoke
Okay.
detectors.
It'll probably have to be low income, right?
Yeah.
It would only have to get, but,
Yeah, they have to qualify.
yeah, they
But
have to qualify for them, but yes. But
Presently, we have zero, so even if they qualify, we
yeah.
got nothing to give them.
Yeah, right, yeah. But but what is nice about this, if you are low income and need a smoke detector, these guys will come out and
And
install it for you, which makes it very special, yeah.
Well, also, I think, did we have in here that the fire department for safety equipment? Because I think that was mentioned somewhere, and I didn't know if it's an approved item or not, but the fire department, they have special equipment. If there's any equipment that we can get that would go through this grant, because someone said some of their safety equipment could be put in that grant.
Anything fire prevention, we can use. There's other safety equipment that we can't always use. But I'm not sure if it would qualify for the CDBG grant.
I don't think it does.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that if we could check with them, because someone told me that some fire equipment could be put through this grant.
Well, some of it can, like Lincoln Park, but they're under an emergency manager, and they have a lot of low income over there. And they're getting CDBG grants for vehicles and other items as well. I don't know if we would qualify for that, so just be aware of it though.
Yeah,
Well, we'll just check with the proper people. That's all I was bringing up. I just want to make sure we're checking with the people that would, because all these items have to be approved, and once they're approved, they're fine, but we want to.
If you don't have
Put
a
in
list,
something.
you can't get approved.
Right, so we want to make sure if there's any fire equipment that you can use that could come from this fund, is at least presented, and they can tell us, yes, it'll work, or no, it won't. So at least it'll be on the list one way or the other.
Okay. And how often does this come up?
every 3 years.
Every 3 years?
All right. So this is for the next 3 years. This will be for the next 3 years.
Okay, very good, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and honorable trustees.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes.
If our fire chief does have some things, maybe you could provide a list of some of the equipment that he needs that,
He thinks might qualify?
right?
I would appreciate
So-
it.
Yeah, just give us
Nothing else?
everything, and then let them tell us you can't.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll throw it all against the wall and see what it
See
says.
here?
How much is that truck?
Yeah, right.
Sounds good to me.
I know, that's.
No, that's gonna be a no.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, even maybe some of this training type things. I mean, we talked about redoing the fire tower. You know, if there's other things related to training, I don't know.
Right.
Mhm.
And other communities are benefiting. It seems as though maybe, you know, they'd see some benefit to that.
They have gotten stricter and stricter through the years.
Yeah, and there's other grants that I'm going to be looking into. I have a couple contacts. One I just contacted recently, she's going to help me out, and she's been doing grants for many years.
Okay.
So I'm definitely looking into grants, not only the CDBG, but other grants as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
some of the grants that have been turned in are the Genesee District Library is requesting consideration for CDBG funding in the amount of $3,000 to be allocated for the purchase of large print books. Parks and Recreation has put in a request for the Senior Citizen Coordinator, which we always have done. It falls under a special category under CDBG funds.
That's to fund their employment? Or?
15% of
The
it.
coordinator, yeah.
Yeah, portion of the coordinator.
And for this, the senior center parking lot replacement, senior center gutter and downspout replacement, and accessible for all playscape fencing around it, and for the recreation master plan debate, update, okay? has come from the Parks and Recreation. We have looked at some of the things we could do from the DPW.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Since we mentioned the Senior Citizen Center, does the city contribute to, I mean, if we're gonna contribute this amount, would they contribute a like amount?
They also contribute, yes, they have the Senior Center.
So do we coordinate those funds, is what I'm trying to?
Yes, we try to.
So they request a similar fund?
Yes.
Similar amount of money, I should say.
I don't know the math, but I was on the
Yeah.
park circuit, the city does contribute to that salary. I don't know the percentage, but.
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at, I mean, all this stuff I think is located in the city, except, I mean, the Senior Citizen Center.
Yeah, right.
So,
We have contributed both separately and together in the past, okay, on different projects.
Right, well, yeah, and I just, I'm all for contributing.
Yeah, no,
I just want to make sure that it's going to be accurate.
No, I mean, we have worked together on, have put in for the same grant, for us, for a portion
Okay,
from us.
okay,
a portion from
perfect.
them,
And I talked to Kay this week, and again, like, I'm almost 100% positive that she said it was 60/40, so, from the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And there is a locality that does qualify for some DPW relief in regard to connecting to water and yeah, okay. Water connection projects and even to the Gravel Street road application. So there's things that we can do with that. And also we would continue with our blight, concerns and to tear down and demolish some of the blighted properties. And in this case, and for the first year, we are able to acquire those properties and that we plan to demolish. Then we can also use it for ditching and for the, as I say, water connection in that area. So we have to be street specific, but these things would apply to areas that would fall into this area. They have to be in a low income area.
Okay, another street I would like to add to this, which I think will also qualify, is there's a gravel section, a small section of Fern Avenue or Fern Road that runs behind Thomas Appliance. That section of gravel road has been graded so many times by the road commission that the road is actually the ditch now. That if you drive down that road, the ditches are higher than the sides of the road.
Yeah, right.
We need some gravel there.
We did, and we will put that in at one time previously. We did not have they didn't have the income, so we'll try again.
I know where these streets are, and I know where that street is, and I would think it's a viable project.
Right.
Well, they gave us a map that told us which areas would qualify for certain areas, so we can submit it, but usually they give us a
According to
map.
the map.
Right.
They don't look at the actual residents on that street, they look at the district.
Well, I don't look at the income.
Here's the map right here.
Yeah.
The map is,
Yeah, it's just the
it's all the green section, anything that's green can,
The dark green, yeah.
In fact, Madam Chair, that
should
was,
be in your pack.
Madam Chair. So where are we with, if we get all these things we've asked for so far, do we have any idea what kind of total we'd be at?
Yes,
dollar-wise?
Mr.
It's not qualified based on
Oh, is it?
that.
Okay, so that
Well, we can
is,
still submit it.
That's our-
Yeah,
We've got $190,917 estimated as our award for the next 3 years' projects. But what we're trying to accomplish with getting the list is we want to have way more than that. In fact,
right.
the DPW project alone on just the President Streets for water connection could be over $400,000 on its own if we connected everybody. But the goal is to have as many as possible because some won't get accomplished, and we want to be able to have projects that have been approved, and then the board will allocate we're gonna put so much towards those infrastructures on President Street, so much at Senior Center, so much, and that'll allow you to spread the $190,000 around to try to impact as many people as possible.
My concern was I just wanted to make sure that we had $190,000
Yeah,
projects.
yeah, right.
Because one thing, that if there's anything that we can do, these dark, it looks like in our township, there's one area right here up in the top.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm scratching my head wondering what is it that we can do specifically in that area to,
That was
You know,
where the
that's the
water,
water-
that's
that
water
water
connection.
is that the water?
Mhm.
Okay. I didn't know if there's anything aesthetically we can do to improve that area too, there's things we can do, but street lights or whatever, I don't know, but.
Well,
They're restricting what you can
Yeah.
do. They told us, those are the two things they said they could do in that area.
yeah.
What's that, the water connection?
Mhm.
The water connection,
And the
as well as the
construction.
streets, gravel, as well as the ditching,
Mhm.
and then the hookups for water and sewer.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's just water, I'm sorry, it's not sewer, but.
Mhm. It's water.
So right now, they have their own wells or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on wells, right?
But it's not mandatory they connect to our city water, right?
No.
So it would be only for those that choose to connect
That's
to our
right.
water.
Mhm.
So
Well, and this grant is actually gonna pay for us.
Yeah.
Right? They wouldn't have-
When you look at the income, the reason we chose President Streets is because HUD automatically says that this whole section qualifies. So those projects will pretty much be approved from our standpoint of submitting them. You've got folks who are on wells who we know for a fact that some of those wells are not the best water. But when you look at the water hookup fees, it could be $10,000, as much as $10,000. We'd love to see them get on municipal water to improve their water quality, but there's no way they can afford the $10,000. We can probably work, jointly with this to be able to waive some of those water tap fees and get as many folks hooked up as possible. But it'd have to be on a first come, first served basis. And once we hit that determined number, that would be the end of it. Although we did find out about another program through the county that has it's a home improvement, the Genesee County Home Improvement Program, and it also has some income qualifying guidelines. And we would still be able to service more people, because this is the one where they'll do roofs, windows, they'll help with light, up to $20,000 per homeowner. They'll replace furnaces, and they will do water tap fees as well. So if we were to do the project and we're able to award it on the President Streets, and we reached our maximum number for the CDBG funds, there is another program we can steer them to. It goes through the county, kind of takes us out of it, but we can assist them. And then depending on their income level, if they're there for 5 years as seniors, they pay zero back. It's a loan, but only pay back so much of it when you sell the property. So if you were able to hook up, get your water connection, and you sold the house 3 years later, based on your income guidelines, you might have to pay back 25% of the cost, 50% of the cost, or 75% of the cost, but only if, totally based on income guidelines.
Right. No, it sounds like a good plan.
And we also have the other plan that we've always had in regard to our roads, when, in the special assessments, if we have people that can fall under the income level, right income level, that we pay for their assessment. So those are all the projects that I put forth, and that's why we have the public hearing, to see if there's any others that people suggest. Yes?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I guess through you to Mr. Lemeton, how would some of these other areas get put on that? Because like Mr. Anderson has said, the Heights area is, I cannot believe it doesn't qualify for this. And some of the houses, off Russell also.
What we found out is that, like with this one, with the map, this is provided to us by HUD directly, saying we know for a fact that this entire section will qualify. So it has to do with the percentage of income in any particular section. So there's no doubt that there may be another road or sections of roads or sections of subdivisions even that may have, will qualify. But the overall area didn't qualify, so that's why it's not highlighted on the map. But we do have in the application packet, there's a survey that you can send to there, and that's how we can identify it, self-identify those. So we send the survey out and they send it back to the county, not to us, so nobody's gonna find out, what their income level is or anything. And we can determine whether they qualified or not, and then we can put those on the list.
Yeah, and maybe it's just my perception, but after, working over there for 30 years in the police department, the Heights area seems to be fairly impoverished. And it would shock me if it didn't qualify and President Streets did. And I know they have, they could use probably some roads and everything.
What's this other piece of green, Dennis, do you know? Because that's
It's in the
also,
city.
that
It's
also.
It's in the
says-
city.
It is?
Yeah.
Both of those. The light in the dark.
Yeah.
But it might be a good idea if we explore that. Maybe it's not going to help for this cycle, but
I think that's a good idea. We will look into, find out what we can for the qualifications on those particular streets that you asked about.
sure, thanks.
So what were the 3 streets? There's
Fern and
Well,
the Heights.
It's the whole Heights area. You have
Yeah.
Sloan, Kettering,
Yeah,
there's like 5 or 6 or 7.
Mhm.
It's like a little subdivision.
yeah.
Right.
And then you have some lower income apartments, about 3-4 buildings.
We paved all the streets north of here,
Yeah.
south of Maple Road,
Yeah.
on the east side of Saginaw Street. They qualified.
Yeah.
I don't know where that was in that time on this map, on a map
Yeah.
like this, but they qualified based on just
Yeah.
drawing a line around a certain, like you're talking about.
Right.
And then, I think, whatever, I don't know how they go about individually surveying, but it was
Right.
done and they qualified.
Yeah, and it's always been, at least the perception of the police department, that the Southampton area is a
Yeah,
better area than the Heights.
yeah,
So
right.
it just-
Yeah, well, that's, yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So,
That's what that's called.
right.
Yeah, I asked about the Southampton area, and they said, no, they didn't qualify.
They don't now,
No,
and that's something, because that's how the streets got.
yeah, yeah.
You improved the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got Bay Street.
Yeah.
It's got gravel.
It's supposed to work.
Yeah, okay. So, those are the things that have been submitted so far.
Right.
And then I guess if we redo any roads, are we going to keep in mind the folks that,
Yeah, that's what
About
I was
the
just
lights.
talking about, yeah, that I.
for the improvement, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that is also on our list,
Perfect.
okay? All right, in that case, if there are no other suggestions, I will close public hearing in regard to, in regard to the CBDG funds. If there are no other requests, I will close the hearing in regard to the CDGB funds. The CDGB fund hearing is now closed. The board will now consider a memorandum of understanding from Attorney Laddie concerning retiree health care for non-union employees. Nancy Stilson and Sherry Potter, provided they have been continuously employed by the township for 20 years and have reached the age of 55.
Madam Chair, I will be happy to address that. Do you need any sort of motion recognizing the list that was compiled as a result of the hearing we just had, but also the projected projects that Mr. Leavitt had provided us? Do we need a motion to recognize that list, or would it hurt if we did that?
No, that would be a good idea, okay.
And
It
so-
isn't listed on the agenda,
Correct.
but I think we will.
Does that mean then we don't add anything else if we accept this?
I think you can add, I think you can continue to add to it, but you,
Okay.
again, in addition to Mr. Leavitt's list, you added the smoke detectors as requested by the
Yeah,
fire
right,
chief,
right.
firefighting equipment, and then we added a couple roads for consideration for gravel and potentially ditching.
Right.
And so I think your list is probably, I mean, it's expanded tonight, and
Yes,
expand again, but
okay.
maybe just for the sake of formality.
I'll make a motion that we, that our board support sending the list to our, CDBG requests.
As
I will
we-
support that motion as presented by Attorney Laddie.
Okay,
As long with, and I think we should also put the streets that they both talked about, put those in there and let them you send it in writing to us to say, no, this doesn't, just in case.
Yeah, all right.
You know, that way they can say, no, it doesn't, and then maybe they'll come out and look at it, and maybe we can change the mind.
Okay, we had 3 streets mentioned, the Heights,
Fern,
and Russell.
well, and then there was quite a few, you had
Well,
Sloan, you had,
Well, that's the Heights.
Yeah,
okay.
the Heights area of the name.
Mhm, Yeah,
And Russell, we don't need, it was just the streets off, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
yeah.
Fern was.
okay.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to, oh, I do have a motion in the second, okay, all those, do we have to have a,
No, I think just a regular voice vote will be fine, you know, regular motion will be
all
fine.
right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
And that list could be amended also.
Yes.
Probably on a
We
less
just said an
formal basis
amended
if they
list,
come up with other eligible projects. Sorry to interrupt, we are back, I think, to item number 6.
Yes.
And this is a topic we talked about earlier, and we had decided that we've got at least 2 longstanding employees who are not a part of our represented unions, who have been with us, or who we have had the understanding that if they continue to have 20 years of continuous service with the township and reach the age of 55, they're able to retire and have the same health care provided to active employees, which may be changed from time to time throughout negotiations because they're still tied to, loosely tied to the contract. People subjected to the collective bargaining agreement. These 2 are Nancy Stilson and Sherry Potter. Nancy Stilson is currently Deputy Treasurer, and Sherry Potter has been our Chief Stamps Administrative Assistant for, well, since I think 1999. We had, I think, in concept, agreed that this is something that, an expectation that has been, certainly the employees had, and also that the majority of our policymakers have had regarding employees, very few employees who are not a part of the collective bargaining groups. And we decided, though, that we had a couple questions regarding whether or not these folks, if they retired, let's say at the young age of 55, if they went on to become subsequently employed and joined another health insurance plan with another entity, could they come back to us at some point in time? And the other question was if they left out of choice because they were eligible to participate in another entity's plan because of a spouse or they were the beneficiary of somebody, could they come back? And after discussion with Mr. Limita, we contacted Mike Humphreys, who is our Blue Cross Blue Shield representative, and he said that as a matter of policy with Blue Cross, if somebody retires from the township, for example, and becomes a full-time employee with another entity, and they're eligible to be covered by the health plan of that entity, that they're obligated, according to Blue Cross, to participate as an employee in that plan. So that was one of our scenarios that we were trying to, that we wanted to have happen. We also, though, said, what happens if they cease to be employed by that entity? And he said that they'll be able to come back to us as a retiree. The second scenario was if somebody left because their spouse had a benefit somewhere else, and he said that they have a provision, Blue Cross Blue Shield has a provision that if you leave their coverage and there's what is a life occurrence or a life event happens, which could be a divorce or a death in the family, that causes you to revert back to our insurance as your available coverage, then you'll be able to rejoin that coverage. Though the final piece of the puzzle, and this was a philosophical question that we had, was if that language doesn't exist in our Chapter B and W agreements, why would we add this language to their memorandum of understanding? And I think we didn't arrive at a consensus because we wanted to find out the answers to those 2 questions before we decided whether or not to strike it completely or not. I think on the basis of the information from Mr. Humphreys, our first concern regarding employment is gone. The only other possible scenario for us that could cause us some concern is, again, if they chose to be on somebody else's insurance, would we compel them to go? Because we know if they voluntarily go and come back, then that's fine. And I think that we've kind of whittled down the point of those provisions almost to the point of non-existence.
Exactly.
And so if you're at all inclined to say, I was leaning toward being concerned about that anyway, why don't we strike that language? Because it's not in the V or W contract. We know we've resolved the majority of our concerns by inserting that language, and I'll strike it and we'll finalize the agreement if that's how you feel. I know that with discussions with Dennis and with Earl and Chris and Mickey, that was those were the main topics that we were concerned about. And so with some guidance from you, we'll put this issue to rest one way or the other.
Yes, Clark.
Madam Chair, based on the council's presentation to the board, what I would like to, if we need a motion to make clear on those two employees, or employees who have reached age 55 and have 20 years of service, that they be provided health care upon retirement.
Right.
And I think that's all we need, and we don't want to add any other language to that motion.
But we only want to do it on these two employees.
That's correct.
Yeah, yes, yes.
And I would second that, but I want to make sure it's just these two employees because,
I'm sorry, that's how I wanted to.
Right.
yeah, and just in a matter of equity, we should treat these folks the same.
Yeah.
So I'll second it.
Right. So that one sentence is being deleted. It
Correct.
says they have to go, right?
Yeah, and for clarification, Mr. Kent's motion, we're identifying these two specific employees
Yes.
because it's important to know that this benefit is not going to travel with the job, doesn't belong to the seat of the job. It travels with these folks individually. Also, though, we do have in this language, and it's taken right out of B&W, that when they reach the point of 20 years of service and age 55, then they're eligible at that point. But they can, in the language from the contract says, the same health care provided to the active employees as may be changed from time to time through negotiations or otherwise. Except that retirees shall not be required to make premium contributions, and the retirement plan may be changed to improve existing benefits granted or provide existing benefits with a lesser premium. So that allows us to morph into the future and change the plan if we need to change it. Know, though, that they're not going to be bound to take that 17.5% contribution going on 20, I think. Also, the paragraph that talks about the Affordable Health Care Act and also the Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act, which is what we opt out of from year to year, that will stay in. So we're striking out that other requirement that they participate in other health care if it's available. Other than that, we've got the V&W language for those two employees only.
Should then this paper be entered into the record, Mr. Laddie, to clarify that motion?
I think it should. And
Yes.
Sure, and that's fine. And again, it's available, it's kind of interesting. It's just, the signature blocks are just for the supervisor and the clerk, because this is our offer to them. There's no acceptance to them, because it's a continuing offer to them. But yes, in this document I did cross out that language in red, which I can clean copy that. But you have this exact document that was forwarded to you all.
So enter the whole thing into the minutes, is what you're saying.
Well, just you can have the agreement as an exhibit to the minutes if you want.
Okay.
All right.
So there is a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, we have.
Do you need a roll call on this?
I think just a regular motion.
Regular motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. And it's now time for the board to review the 2016 budget.
So I asked to have this included on the agenda for this evening because it's my first time, like I said before, going through the budget process with this board. We did provide it to you in hard copy back in September as well as electronically. My intention, as you'll note, the department heads aren't here this evening and prepared to answer any questions, but we talked about this. I said I'd kind of like to get it on here so we're back on the radar screen. We do have until December 15th to, hold our public hearing and approve the budget moving forward. So it's not like we're running out of time, but we only have a couple of meetings until then. So what I would like to find out from the board is what your pleasure is. You've had the opportunity to look at it. if there were any glaring concerns that you had that we could address now, as well as would the board want to hold this at a regularly scheduled meeting, or would you prefer to have set a date for a special meeting just for budget review?
I have one comment, and I'm all for it, holding this at a regular schedule.
Yeah.
But I would like to propose that we increase Jeff Sears' salary. We brought him in at the low end, and I know this is part of the budget, that's why I want to throw this out. We brought him in at the low end, and I think he has demonstrated that he was worthy of a higher salary. So, I mean, I have a figure in mind, but it's just, what I'm thinking. But I would like that when we look at the DPW budget that we consider an increase, because I think he has exceeded our expectations. And we brought him in at the very low end.
Yes, Scott?
Yeah, I would say, we can start out having this at one of our regular meetings to go through it. I don't know, do we usually have the department chairs at that meeting to discuss any changes, or?
We have had in the past done that.
Because in some, I'd like to hear from them, if there's something that they need or isn't in there that they need, or I'm sure they communicate that to Dennis, so I'm sure Dennis can bring that forward too, so I don't know, it'd be Dennis's pleasure, I trust his judgment on that. But.
Dennis? Yes.
I agree with that, but not every department. Some departments are real easy budgets to do. And previous board, prior to election, we did that where every department came forward, and all we did was make one really long meeting out of it. So look at the big departments. Yeah, lots of long meetings. Police is a big one. DPW, some of the bigger departments, yes, that is a worthwhile thing to do and be able to communicate that. IT department, pretty simple. So the bigger department is.
Yes, Clark?
I'll just throw this out here. I mean, I've been through, I think, one of them, 17 of these. And Mr. made a comment a couple weeks ago about, we got a manager, let's let him manage. He's heard from the department heads. I don't, myself personally, I find it very grueling in a budget process to set and have a budget department, or a department head tell me why they need $1,500 for Xerox, for papers or inks or cartridges or whatever. It's Mr. Bennett, that in all those processes I've been through, there's been very little bit that has ever changed in terms of what's been presented to us in the September or October timeframe. So just weighing that in as you think about having those people. What I would prefer is that Mr. Limita meets with the department heads, hammers out this budget as presented. I mean, this may still have to be tweaked, right? I don't know if this is, Dennis, if this is what you think is the final draft, or you guys are still, is it an in-progress document?
There are some changes that will be made, and of course, when we produced it, we're based on a certain set of circumstances. Now we've got 2 more months expenditures underneath our belts, so we can make those adjustments accordingly.
And keep in mind, folks, the budget is a blueprint. It's not a by God, it can never change. It's a plan.
Living document.
It's our best guess plan, and it can be amended. So we're not locked into anything, and it isn't a license to spend just because it's, at least the way our policy works, it's not a license to spend. So it's a guideline, it's a plan. It doesn't have to be right exactly what we wanted. It's got to be balanced. We're not going to vote on it if it isn't balanced. But I think I'd like to see that work done behind the scenes and then presented to the board. That's just my preference to budget process.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd go along, I guess, I'd leave it to Mr. Lima if he feels he needs a department head here to explain to us why they need to do something different.
I can tell you that he's worked very closely with the department
Right.
heads at this, up to this time to present it.
Good.
And unless you have a specific thing that you, I mean, that's what he wanted to do tonight. You've had the chance to look over this, and if you have nothing's really stood out to you, Jude's deal, I think that we can go ahead and review it again and see if there's anything else. I know that we, we're still in the tight budget stage, okay? And we never know what the state's gonna do to us every month, okay? So that's been a problem, and sometimes it works in reverse. Sometimes we get some extra money that we hadn't planned on. So, as Clark has said, this is a guideline that we work with, but I think that you have another chance to look at it, and otherwise we'll make your decision at the next meeting. And
Madam Chair, is it Mr. Limita that would bring potential raise? I know Dr. Reardon brought up, but Mr. Limita would have that opportunity as well if he wanted to increase the police chief or whoever it is, their rate of pay.
Right.
Or go through
That's
Mr.
right.
Limita?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask one question based on that, and I'm not at all against that suggestion. When is the DPW contract up, the union contract?
Oh, the union contract,
Yeah,
it's got till 2 years,
2 years
Well,
left.
it's a 3-year deal, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
And 1 year's already been
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
The only reason I ask is because if that's real close, I'd kind of like to do one before the other, but no, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, the raise that I would have in mind would be way outside that 3%, just because I think he has done an exceptional job. And, as a department head, I don't necessarily think we would hold them to the same standard necessarily as.
I agree, but I just don't want to say give them a 4% raise and have the union turn around and say, well, you only gave me 2.
I understand that. The whole thing is that we did bring him in at a lower rate, and I'm just very pleased with. So.
All right, and we definitely will take that. I'm sure Mr. Limita will take that under consideration. Yes.
Sorry for all the comments here, but I think, one of the things that I'd like to do when we go through the budget with Mr. Limita is just talk about maybe some of the departments and what some of the forecasting that he sees that we would like to achieve with those departments, not necessarily financially, but what we're going to do, because really, I mean, this is about what we're doing for our residents.
Right, exactly.
And if we're going to spend more money on the DPW, what are we going to try and achieve there for the next year? In our tax department, in all these different departments, just kind of look at in a different way of, rather than just how are we spending this money?
You're right.
What are we trying to achieve this next year as a goal for this department in terms of, our finance department? What is it that they're trying to do rather than just maintaining?
Right.
And talk about some of those things so we get a full picture of each department and, not, should we spend more on ink, but what are we trying to achieve with this? So now our thinking is more in line with, well, maybe, we can be on the same team and, well, I've got a suggestion maybe how we can get there a little quicker. So, like Julia.
Yes.
And that actually, that's an excellent comment, and I don't know if this is exactly what you were thinking, but I would also like Mr. Limita to look at maybe consolidating departments, maybe making it more streamlined. I don't want to sound too Republican, I mean, Mr. Bennett is exactly right. This is for the township residents, and so if we can do something to cut costs, streamline, make it more efficient, I'm all for that. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair, one thing I'm just thinking of as far as the calendar goes, as I recall, we do not have our fourth Tuesday meeting in November or December.
That's right.
So you're down to the committee of the whole and regular meeting for November and then December, and that's it.
And at the next meeting, are we going to have presentations from the retirement?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, Marty Carlson will be here from MERS at the committee of the whole meeting, I believe, and she'll make a presentation on it. So probably the following meeting on Thursday, we could see if we have the budget for the board at that time. That's agreeable.
So,
Madam
yes.
Chair, does that sound doable in terms of what we were talking about, in terms of talking about some of the goals for the different departments and how it fits into the budget?
Absolutely.
I think some of the departments do have a 5-year plan or at
Sure.
least a 2-year plan, so forth, that they can present to you as to what they want to achieve in the next few years.
Right. Because as Clark mentioned, it's kind of a blueprint for where we want to go financially. But,
Yeah, right.
you know, how does that blueprint fit with what we're
With
trying to build?
with the goals I wanted to achieve, you're
Right.
correct. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else that you wish to bring forth in regard to the 2016 budget? In that case, is there any other business that can come before wish to come before the board?
Just that everywhere you drive in Grand Blanc Township, there's dirt being moved.
Yeah, right.
So we've got a little bit of development going on.
Right.
Then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Nothing else.
I'll
Is
support.
there, okay, there's support.
There's support.
Beat Clark to it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Would you go